This lunar eclipse is a portal unlike anything we've ever experienced. A deep, gritty, and intensely personal reckoning with our past, designed to clear the slate for a future that we can't yet see but are being asked to non negotiably trust in. With Venus retrograding through Aries, Mars stepping up in Cancer, and Uranus shaking the foundation in Taurus, we're being asked to reclaim the scattered pieces of ourselves, lift the veil of protection, and realign with a higher quality of life rooted in love, beauty, and flow. It's messy, it's raw, but it's also the gateway to profound empowerment and freedom. So let's crack the code and navigate this wild opportunity together. Welcome to Eclipse season. March is a power-packed month. We have a Venus retrograde, a Mercury retrograde, a full moon lunar, and a partial solar eclipse. And we end the month of March with Neptune moving into Aries for the first time in 164 years. Now that's a lot of wild energy. And I don't think I have ever been more humbled by the astro than I am right now. And I think that's on purpose. Because in order to have trust in the quantum nature of our reality, we have to be shown its potential. And the only way to truly do that is by living and experiencing some wild ass, unpredictable shit. And while I know people come to astrology and seek it out for answers and predictions and future tripping, I think it's important to remember that if we truly knew what was going to happen, there would be no point in this journey. Uranus teaches us that it's the very experience of the unpredictable and the unimaginable that moves us out of our comfort zones towards growth. And that's really humbling. Well, to me anyway. So all that being said, let's crack the code at the patterns underlying this Virgo eclipse so we can better understand how to work with this energy and let it flow. Because this tidal wave won't stop, whether we like it or not. So not gonna lie, on first glance, this chart is not giving me warm and fuzzy feelings. Since it's an eclipse, it's by nature unpredictable. And this chart, well, it's complex. Because it's a full moon, we of course have moon-opposed sun. But because it's an eclipse, we are also within 5 degrees of the nodes. And because we have 4 placements within 7 degrees of the sun in Pisces, there's extra opposition occurring for this eclipse specifically, which is what's causing all of those red lines down the center of the chart. And I mean, I don't love all that red. Kind of feels like a splitting of worlds. However, it's within the work inside that split that creates an extremely potent portal for rapid transformation. So don't despair. Upon my first look at this chart, I didn't even see this, but that heavy opposition of red is held by a cradle of support from Mars and Uranus. We also have a loose grand trine of support flowing between that full moon node conjunction, Uranus in Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius. So off the bat, we know that this moon will be impacting our vision and the repair work that's being done on our freedom and community. Furthermore, that trine doesn't act alone. There's kite involvement here too. One's maybe not a true kite because it's at a wide margin, but it's pointing to Mars finally moving forward in Cancer. However, the primary direction of this entire chart is a kite pointing to the density in Pisces incorporating the Aries line. So that's a lot of astro talk and a lot of guidance we can extract from this chart, which I know I'm particularly in here digging around for, because it's a weird moment in time for me. I've been doing a lot of really deep and vulnerable inner child work supported by this Pisces pileup, which for me on my chart is actually happening in my 5th house of the heart and inner child. And you know, that can be pretty draining. I mean, like once a week, I'm pretty much taken out for like 2 days or so because of the depth of this healing work. It's a lot. I'm guessing some of that might be real specific to me because my South Node is at 3 Aquarius, which is conjunct where Pluto is on this very chart during this eclipse. So there's a lot of extra depth for me specifically here. But I keep going anyway because Aquarius and the life that I want, the one that I want to build for myself, the freedom from control systems that I seek, and the community and belonging that I long for, they will not come from the energies of my suffering and my past traumas. They will not come from doing the same unconscious things I have done to keep myself safe over and over again. And they will not come from something outside of me coming to save me either. And I really hate that last part. We all want to be saved in some way. But I'm sharing this because I'm here in these charts looking for some reprieve, a glimmer that reminds me that there's light at the end of the tunnel. Because I'm a Scorpio rising, that tunnel can get real dark real fast. So if we are all here collectively being offered a healing portal that only comes once in a lifetime, I don't know about you, but I would rather die than continue repeating my suffering. It would be worse than physical death. So I'm putting my all into this and utilizing this energy to the best of my ability, no matter how uncomfortable and unpleasant it can be at times. And well, I'm holding onto this portal and its potential to transform my life. Because that's what the math keeps telling us. So let's look for the glimmers and guidance together. So our full moon lunar eclipse is at 23 degrees Virgo. I think that's part of what makes this so uncomfortable. Virgo loves having all the answers. It's Mercury ruled, so it likes to problem solve utilizing facts and information. And it's at the highest Mercury degree here, so there's a lot about information, communication, and understanding. Now, when Virgo doesn't feel like it has enough information and understanding, or there's a lack of clarity around a necessary step, it can freeze up and crash out. So I think it's really important that we have the moon here, because moon is feelings, it's intuition, it's femininity. That placement alone tells us that the facts and information necessary to gain clarity come from within us and our expansive intuitive capacities. Now, if we go back a moment to the story I was just telling about my own inner work, I can tell you one of the intuitive hits that I got as I was reading this chart is that we will not have all of the information to feel like we can problem solve before this eclipse. And that's pretty typical with most eclipses. And to be honest, we probably won't until eclipse season and retrogrades are over in mid-April. That's when more clarity will come. Right now, we're just experiencing life. So for me, I keep feeling very strongly like I need to slow down all of my decisions, my actions, and basically everything that I can. The frenzied pace of the world will keep going, but I don't have to be pulled into that energy. What I can do is keep reminding myself that magic exists in what I can't predict. If I hold out and just work on regulating myself, clearing out old patterns and wounding and raising my self esteem, I will be present enough to receive that which I seek in whatever ways that it wants to show up. I get to align with what I feel. Feminine, Venus energies. How it plays out, do I really care? Do I need to dictate that? No, because what if it's even better than what I could imagine? So we have that moon conjunct South Node at 27 Virgo. South Node energy is what we use to grow into the lessons of the North Node, but it's also where we can and often will get stuck. So Virgo's unconscious lower octave is anxiety, worry, and hypochondria from not being present with what is. 27 degrees equates to Mars, action. We have to actively redirect our energies in this eclipse back to presence in our bodies. Stop fighting ourselves and get into alignment with our feelings. Actively trust our intuition, allowing the layers of protection to fall away to reveal the core wounds underneath. All that being said, the propensity to fall into anxiety here is very high. With all that Pisces, I think it's going to happen no matter what. So it's within slowing yourself down and continually going back to your persistent grounding and presence practices that will really help balance a lot of that out. Because on the other side of this chart, we oppose the sun at 23 Pisces. Eclipses are known as the bringers of change. And since it's always moon and sun involvement, something changes about how you feel, which then transforms your identity. Since we are all at the collective Mercury degree in Pisces, there's something about the information and knowledge around our healing itself that is up for transformation. Now, I think for a lot of people who are unconscious to these energies, that will come as greater empathy and compassion, which sounds great. But because there's direct opposition, I think that might cause people to get very sad and defeated as well, especially those who have been in very active denial of compassion and mercy. I don't really feel like diving into the political climate in this episode, so I'm just going to say that the math here suggests that those denying equal human rights to certain groups, for any reason, there's potential for great internal shame meant to open up their viewpoints. Now, no promises that the change is going to happen instantly upon this eclipse. That's not really how it works. But below the surface, specifically where we cannot see, These energies are working to open up greater access to the equality that comes from understanding that every single person is equally valuable just because they're alive and here. Pisces energies operates in these subconscious and quantum fields, beyond what we can see, but often what we can sense without requiring scientific or physical proof. So for a lot of people, they will feel this long before they are ready to consciously admit it or act on it. Now that's complicated to think about. And if you're interested in quantum evolutionary astrology, I think you probably have at least some level of self awareness regarding your shadow, consciousness, and healing work. So, how this may apply to you may be more related to a change in how you feel around what can truly be healed. You may not know the how yet, but perhaps consider that maybe we don't actually need to. I know intuitively for me, some of the how is intricately intertwined with trust in the potential of the unknown. Because while healing does take a lot of conscious work, maybe the energetic elements of that aren't actually that complicated. What if the magic of quantum evolution simply meets us halfway? We do our part in bringing light to our shadows, and then surrender and allow the energy to deliver. So, in order to work through this, we have to consider the pileup of energies and implications impacting this change of identity. First, right up behind the sun is Saturn at 22 Pisces. Saturn energy keeps us on task and accountable. When Saturn is involved, our decisions and commitments have far reaching implications and longevity. Now, while eclipse energy is not exactly where we make solid long term commitments, this conjunction is a bit different. At 22 degrees, we're dealing with Uranian energy, so there's already something unexpected that supports our transformation here. How I read this for the Star Wars fans out there is kind of like there's a disturbance in the Force, but one that's part of a greater picture and bigger story that leads to transformation that's on task with our greater growth. A disruption that perhaps makes us face and open up how we see healing, compassion, empathy, and perhaps spirituality itself. Ultimately, it will be for our greater good, but it may feel exposing or even downright painful, depending on how open and attached you are to your stories and beliefs. And there are many people out there who literally don't know who they are without their stories and beliefs. That's why this energy has a harsh dictatorship aspect to it with Saturn here. So while I don't think any of this will be easy for anyone, those who are more open to transformation and challenging their worldview will be in more flow with the transformation than those who are rigidly attached to how they believe things are. Or the potentially more difficult to face, how you want things to be, even if that's not what is. And we know this because of the North Node 27 Pisces involvement. Whether it appears that way or not, North Node Pisces tells us that we are in the age of growth of compassion, empathy, and mercy. We will talk about this more when we get to the Pluto and Uranus aspects. But the great divide we are seeing in the world, the harshness, the contrast, the duality, it's part of this larger process of showing us what needs to transform and change, so that there can be greater quality of life for all and all conscious beings. We are way out of alignment right now, but North Node urges us not to focus on the pain or the suffering, but rather the actions that we can take to align with our healing. In Pisces, that will take action on our part, because falling into illusion or suffering can be very easy and all too familiar. Now, I'm going to intentionally leave that broad and open to interpretation and application in your own lives. But do remember that the energy of this eclipse in the Pisces stellium is entirely in the third decan. That's collective compassion and empathy. That's healing and mercy for all. But we all have to go about it in our own ways. And I don't know about you, but I personally feel like that is some of the trippiest and weirdest experience of polarity of being human. The way that we're connected in unity consciousness, but have to go through our individuated experiences to discover all of the ways that ultimately lead us back to each other. Maybe that's the very essence of Pisces, which of course is ruled by none other than Neptune itself. And where is Neptune during this eclipse? Oh yes, just right at the 29th testing degree of Pisces, its own sign. And the very last degree of the zodiac itself. So yeah, our healing and transcendence are being tested. We are being asked to prove our commitment to the essence of healing itself. Compassion, empathy, and mercy are the basis of the oneness of connection that all beings deserve just because we are born, just for being here. Because if you break that down, there is no rhyme, reason, or room in there for hierarchies or discrimination or anything that allows one to rise at the expense and suffering of another. The essence of what patriarchy and capitalism are built on. And I think that's why it's so easy to get stuck in suffering during heavy Pisces energies. Because when you open your eyes and see what's happening all around us, the suffering can feel suffocating. And that's why there's dissociation and illusion in Pisces and Neptune. Because if we spent every moment in this reality facing how much suffering we've inflicted on each other, all of us, in the existential multidimensional reality, there's no victims who aren't also perpetrators. And if we focused on that, we may not be able to find a solution. So here's looking at you, Moon and South Node Virgo. We don't want to get stuck in suffering, so we cloud our vision so that we can get stuff done, somewhat pretending things aren't what they are so that we can go about our lives. I don't know, there's something about this eclipse that just looks like it's meant to lift the veil. Like for a moment, whatever escape tactics we use to avoid looking at the mess will fail, universally, collectively. I don't necessarily like saying that because I know firsthand how abrasive that can be. The veil, both collective and the ones we've created to feel safe, can sometimes feel like our security blankets. But remember, we are not meant to stay here in the suffering and drown in it or hide from it. We are here to face what is, be present with it, and find solutions that will truly keep us safe and allow us to let go of the need for the security blanket overall. Now I'm going to be real blunt about how that's all gone down for me. Although we're going to move on to talking about the cradle of support for this process, I would be misleading if I did not talk about the influence of Venus retrograde at the Neptune degree of Aries as part of this process. Anyway, I am absolutely not having a good time in this energy. It doesn't seem like too many people are either. This eclipse seems to be bringing up to the surface the rawness of some of our deepest traumas that are still causing self-abandonment today. And for me and a lot of people out there, that's some really ugly stuff. The stuff you fear even thinking about because it's that painful. As I bravely dig into some of these moments, I've realized how they've essentially shattered me. I've left pieces of my heart and ultimately pieces of my empowerment and with various parts of myself stuck in various traumas throughout my life. And that's just this human lifetime. But remember, this isn't coming up to trap us. We're not supposed to stay there. We are being asked to clean it out and let it go, to essentially retrieve those pieces of our heart and minds and souls and tend to them with compassion, love, and understanding, to love ourselves whole again. We will never forget, and that's on purpose so that we don't repeat it. But we can choose to love ourselves in those moments of immense and deep pain. Because when we refuse to face and accept it, we continue to abandon those parts of ourselves. We continue acting from a shattered place. And what happens is those sore spots become our reactionary triggers, and then they dictate our subconscious patterns and how we ultimately operate in the world. They perpetuate the cycle and cause us to keep repeating the wounding over and over again until we are finally willing to simply feel it all the way through. And I'm not gonna lie, it's been a pretty gritty experience. I have not enjoyed it. But we are supported here both figuratively and literally, because there's a cradle of support between Mars and Uranus trines involved. Mathematically, it's actually kind of beautiful because we have Mars at 18 Cancer, the action degree of the sign of compassion and mother. And we have Uranus in Taurus, a Venus-ruled sign at the highest collective Venus degree. So while Venus is in her retrograde internally burning shit down that can't move forward into the new era, she has Mars taking action for her on behalf of his latest lessons on mother energies, and Uranus transforming things so we can live a higher quality of life that aligns with beauty, peace, harmony, and flow. I think that's really sweet, but in a masculine leadership, protector of vulnerability sort of way, especially given Venus's stance on giving the masculine space during his prior retrograde. But to be honest, I really could not have predicted in this energy how wildly destructive it would feel from an internal perspective. Yes, there's lots of dismantling happening outside of us, but Venus is in the first decan. It's the personal degrees. And this is most definitely fucking personal. So before I move off this cradle, I feel compelled to share what I've been doing in this energy. I'm thinking of creating a meditation to assist with this process. And if that's something you'd be interested in, definitely let me know in the comments below. So as I do my inner work, I'm essentially retrieving the parts of my soul and psyche and heart that have been shattered and scattered throughout my lifetime. And if you have no idea what I mean by that, well, You're either extremely blessed with very little trauma, or you're repressing it and it has yet to come to the surface. Wherever you are in this process, it's totally okay. I'm in my 40s and I'm just now facing some of my darkest memories. So, how I'm doing that essentially is I'm going into the memory as my current self, not to relive it, but rather with lots of gentle love and empathy. And I'm retrieving the scattered parts of myself that are frozen in time and bringing them back into the safety of who I am now, rebuilding my own empowerment. And why would I do this? Well, because I no longer wish to operate from brokenness. So if you find yourself venturing, or rather being forced, into this dance of darkness or light, please remember to do this with the utmost self-care and self-love and compassion. Be mindful of your inner voice and monologues and how you speak to yourself. Because traveling with Venus through this process is Mercury. And Mercury will also go into retrograde the day after this eclipse. They are moving together, here to fix how we talk to and love ourselves, back into empowerment. Now, astrology math speaking, this is right on time with Venus retrograde in Aries, tearing shit apart, and Mars direct in Cancer, providing unexpectedly softer, more love-based actions around compassion, nurturing, healing, and protection. Like a necessary role reversal of sorts, but still utilizing their strengths. I suspect that the timing is quite purposeful because later in April, when Venus is direct again, she's going to move back over these early degrees of Aries and cross Neptune again. But the difference is that by then, Neptune will also be in Aries rather than where it is now at the testing degree of the entire zodiac. Protective empowerment will become the new focus of our 164-year healing and transcendence Neptune cycle. So I think a lot of that is happening now to clean out the real depth of what's left so that when we are building up again, it's from a newfound cleaner slate and not clouded by old stories and outdated patterns. But listen, we are all going to fumble in this energy. It's not going to be clean and it's not going to be easy. But what we can do is approach it with love, compassion, and the wisdom of our charts. And I would love to help guide you through that. For continued free content on how the planets follow patterns that equate to evolutionary guidance, like, subscribe, and follow me here on YouTube or at Sarah Lynn Bliss on Instagram. But for deeper, more personalized analysis and strategies and one-on-one work, comment below or send me a DM so we can get in touch. I'm humbled to offer chart readings and analysis and to be of service in helping you follow your bliss and the growth paths of your nodal axis. When we align with this guidance, life can expand and flow and breathe. I really want that for all of us because we all deserve to get out of our suffering patterns, to thrive and support each other and unite in walking each other back to oneness. We need each other. Because that is the bigger evolutionary goal here. And I'll be frank with you, I'm on the struggle bus around why this has to be so hard and hurts so much. My own astrology mentor talks about how none of the planets, whether benefic or malefic, actually have ill intent. Rather, it's our own resistance to letting go and trusting in the unknown that makes the process harder and makes it hurt more than it has to. And I guess that's some of the messiness of being human. And you know, for me right now, Pluto at 3 Aquarius is straight up sitting on my south node, while Uranus in Taurus is both 1 degree away from my natal Mars, as well as almost in direct opposition to my own natal Uranus placement. So it's probably hitting me in a different, more thoroughly cleansing way than others, but I can only imagine that I am both ripe for it in midlife and because I have worked really hard over the years to develop the coping mechanisms and capabilities to actually face these things head on. After many decades of hiding under the security blankets of my nervous system survival patterns, I'm just trying to be gentle about it with myself because those patterns were there to protect me. I'm not a victim to myself, but I also don't want to continue this cycle. I want to choose to grow from it. So sometimes it helps to remind myself that we are all on different but quietly unified journeys here. If we all had the same path, we would be both very bored and incredibly predictable, but we also wouldn't be able to help lead each other back to unity. So now we have this loose grand trine with 2 kites here showing us the bigger picture in greater detail. We know it's specifically a big picture support because it includes the nodes, the eclipse at the Mercury degree of Virgo, Uranus in Taurus, and Pluto 3 Aquarius. Now, we don't really have to go back and analyze these placements again, but instead let's focus on the kite formation itself. In evolutionary astrology, a kite is an aspect that builds upon a grand trine by adding an opposition to one of its points. That creates a focal planet that acts as a driving force. Like if you were out flying a kite, the tip points forward to where you're going, and the back and sides support the progress by conducting airflow and providing power. Same concept here. The grand trine's natural flow is given direction and purpose by the tension of the opposition, which, in this case, isn't just one planet. The rear end of the kite is the lunar eclipse in the south node Virgo. So then normally the planet at the tip of the kite, the focal planet, represents the key to growth, what pushes our expansion of our conscious development. Now, that comes with strong sense of destiny, heightened creativity, and the need to be supported through challenges to fully realize the evolutionary path. But we are in a unique portal here, because the forward-moving tip isn't just one planet, it's the entire Pisces stellium. So this full moon lunar eclipse is driving us towards and through an unprecedented emotional and spiritual recalibration of how we view ourselves, Sun, our commitment to healing, Saturn, transcendence itself, Neptune, and our overall collective growth goals to reimagine healing, spirituality, compassion, and empathy with the North Node. And remember, that's all happening in the highest degrees of Pisces, so it starts with our individual subconscious transformation. But that in turn collectively impacts the bigger picture healing of humanity itself. And man, that's fucking wild. While we can intellectualize and talk all we want about the math of this, I was not prepared for how it feels to do the work. I have to constantly remind myself that this is a portal unlike anything anyone on the planet has ever seen or experienced. We're not supposed to really know how to navigate it. And because being human is a messy process, it's not necessarily going to be an easy, clean, straight line. Having the deepest traumas of your life brought to the surface is abrasive, no matter how many times you've worked with these energies. But remember, the purpose here is to reclaim our sovereignty and empowerment so that we can build a better future for ourselves and each other. And under no circumstances can our new future, Pluto in Aquarius, be written from the script of our past. Uranus in Taurus is going to continue to move us in the direction of owning the rise of our quality of life. Now, in the bigger picture, everything in life is supporting this evolution. But as humans, Uranus has continually provided us with transformation opportunities through unexpected disruption. And that can feel jarring, and sometimes it can feel like we're victims to that energy. That's all a normal part of being human. The bigger picture here, all that energy in Pisces, wants us to open up to the potential of the quantum unknown. And through this process of feeling our humanness and using our intuition as important, valid information, we transform our identities and get to know ourselves better. And with every full moon, there's release that occurs, but even more so with this lunar eclipse. And here, that release is our attachment to the stories of our limitedness, both as individual humans and also within the collective world at large. There is a massive range of letting go that is occurring in this portal. It's literally everything all at once, but as part of a larger process that began long before this week. Letting go of the stories that keep us limited. Letting go of the need to control everything. Letting go of the toxic patterns that we built to keep ourselves safe. Letting go of all of the ways that we have given away our power. If you are actively engaged in this work right now, please know that I am so proud of you. This shit is not easy, but it will be worth it. Full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo opposed Sun in Pisces on the nodal axis, conjunct Saturn and Neptune at 29 degrees. The way we feel about humanity, being in our bodies, trusting our intuition, and problem solving will transform our identities and who we know ourselves to be. That is what eclipse energy is here for, the bringers of change, but not simply through outside experiences happening to us, but rather from the inside out, as disruptions within us drive our actions and ultimately transforms our identities. We see the math of that in this wonky, extra kite-like trine aspect to Mars at the Mars degree of Cancer, taking action around compassion, emotional nurturing, and self-care. It's not exactly a kite because of the wide degrees between Pluto and Mars. They don't precisely oppose. And I think that's important here because it positions Mars as more of a flowing support role rather than tension. And with that primary kite opposition, we absolutely have more than enough tension to go around in this eclipse. So if in this extremely transformational pocket of energy you find yourself in a weird place of not knowing who you are, please be gentle with yourself. It's relatable and it's going around. We can choose to see that as a weakness and be afraid of the unknown and afraid of ourselves, or we can use it as the opportunity that I think it's really meant to create for us. A portal that is assisting us in wiping the slate clean so that we can begin a transcendent cycle anew, wherein we can build a world that we are truly proud to live in together. The Aquarian vision is based in sovereignty and co-creative community. Now, all of that being said, before I sign off, I wanted to mention that I'm going to be taking a short break from Crack the Code for a bit. Not forever, but at least through the solar eclipse on the 29th of this month, as I'm going to be traveling and basically just experiencing life. It's hard for me to let go of wanting to be there to support others through this monumental eclipse portal, but something tells me that there may be greater wisdom to share on the other side of it through my lived experience rather than conveying the math of it beforehand. As we move forward, I'm also planning on leaning a bit more into my meditations as well as experiment and explore some different types of content to see what works best for me and what resonates best for you. So this is definitely not goodbye. There will definitely be more content and more charts to crack. But in the meantime, I wanted to wish everyone who is watching a peaceful eclipse season, a transformative retrograde cycle, and I promise I will see you on the other side of this energy. Until then, I'm so proud of you and extremely humbled to walk this path along with you, especially so in this energy. Remember, be kind and gentle and loving to yourself and each other, and let it flow, 'cause it won't stop. Thank you so much for joining me on Crack the Code and trusting my guidance. It is part of the mission of my North Node to follow my bliss as a heart-led leader and be of service to others through channeling the guidance of the charts as we walk through this expanse of space and time. I have some big visions to bring to life in 2025 and beyond. Subscribe to my channel here on YouTube or follow me on Instagram at Sarah Bliss to be the first to find out about new offerings. To book one-on-one readings, written or video chart analysis, comment on either channel or send a DM to get in touch. I'm so grateful for your support and presence, and I can't wait to connect further and crack the code on the guidance of your own chart. Listen to your heart, follow your bliss, and let it flow, because it won't stop.